tell her this all the time. She is a beast. I mean, she could take down a grown elephant if she wanted to. She's nuts. She's crazy. She's 4 years old and she's buff. She's going to play for the Green Bay Packers one day. I mean, she's huge. My parents, they threw her in sports before soccer, mini soccer. Oh, it's so cute to kick the ball. They're like, that's not good enough. Let's amp it up a little bit. Let's throw her in football. And so show the picture. Boom! There she is. And you see the little boy behind her? It's like, oh, look at the size there. It's like, man, she can take that kid out in an instant. I mean, she's awesome. She's a UFC fighter. I love her. She's a beast. But she's afraid of things. Like most of us, children are afraid of the weirdest things. And this beast of a football player, this tank, her biggest fear is Rafiki from The Lion King. I mean, there's Rafiki. That's a scary picture right there. I would be scared of that. But, I mean, she used to be so afraid of it. I don't think she's afraid of it anymore, but she used to be terrified. Go to Disneyland, they had Disney Pass, they see Rafiki, she'd be running the opposite way. It was horrible, afraid, fearful. And most kids have these weird childhood fears, and they don't make sense. They're irrational. I was talking to Jeremy, a friend, last week, and he's our worship pastor, super cool guy. He has a 2-year-old son who just became 2, and his son's biggest fear is, get this, I couldn't believe it, I was blown away. Biggest fear in the world was, hey, there he is, the ice cream truck. So all the kids are running towards the ice cream truck, he's running away like, it's hilarious, and I'm sure your kids have some fears. I'm sure you had your own fears. I mean, I'm about to be very vulnerable right now. I had some weird fears of my own when I was a kid. I was afraid of, oh gosh, I was afraid of, get this, I was afraid of the freeway. And it's not just like, oh, the freeway looking at it's scary. It's just the idea and the idea of the freeway. I mean, it's this magical place where you jump on and you're going faster than the speed of light, and then you get off at this destination, you take the exit, and then things are just slow again. And I used to give me the biggest fears in the world. I used to hyperventilate. My dad used to have to take the long way because he didn't want me to hyperventilate and pass out in the car. I mean, you know, you have those things that you pull on the side and like you lean back in your chair as far as possible. Like I used to have to do that, but all the way back, in the middle of crying, in the middle of snot, in the middle of screaming for my dad, take the exit, Dad, take the exit, like my dad was trying to torture me by going on this thing. And I used to scream, take the exit, take the exit, take the exit, like the exit was a magical place, that's where our destination went in. That would be the end goal. That would be the end result. Everything would be okay, everything would be hunky-dory as long as we got to the exit. And so we would get off the exit really early sometimes, and we would take the long way around, or sometimes we'd even go back home because it just wasn't worth it taking that freeway. It wasn't worth it going on that long journey, that long adventure. And like many of us, I think some of us are getting off on the exit way too early. I think there's a journey that God's calling us to, and I think our culture is losing the sense and value of what a journey is supposed to look like and what a journey is supposed to be. I mean, I just think about some of the things that we have and some of the processes that we have now that we didn't have before, and some of the things we take for granted. I mean, GPS. There's 100 different apps right now. If you go on the App Store, type in maps, you'll find 100 different apps. 100 different apps claiming to be the fastest way to get to your destination. We have Amazon Prime, where I can click on my phone right now. I can order a gallon of milk in an hour to an hour and a half. I can have milk delivered to this very church, this very instant, and with 2 clicks of a button. We have what's that other thing called? Not Amazon Prime. We have Hulu Video and Netflix where I can watch a movie. We don't have to go to the movie theater anymore. We don't have to go talk to people. I don't have to go to the store anymore and get milk. I don't have to go and ask people what directions are anymore. I mean, I'm instant. It's instantaneous. I get what I want now. We have Facebook and Instagram. I mean, I can click, snap, and upload a selfie right now, and everybody can know where I am, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and who I'm with in a second. No longer do I have to go, roll my film, click, drop it off at Costco, pay $100, and then come back a week later, find out my finger was in the picture. We don't have to go through that process anymore. The process is cut in half. It's more than cut in half. It's eliminated. We're losing the value of a journey. We're losing the value of waiting. Patience is giving way to impatience. There's a reason that speed dating and things like that are on the rise. There's a reason why we have shallow friendships and long-lasting, deep friendships are at a scarcity. There's a reason why vines are so famous. You got 7 seconds to impress me. Ready, go. That's our mantra. And that's not just my culture. It's America. We're an instantaneous, self-gratifying culture. And we're missing out on the journey of life. So up front, right now, I want to challenge you guys. Before we even touch the scriptures, before we even get to the story of David, I want to challenge you. Don't expedite your life. Don't experience it. Don't expedite your journey. Experience it. Don't miss out on the things of life for calmness, for comfortability. Experience it in the fullness that God intended of it. I mean, in this story, in this epic adventure, that we find David, a shepherd. A shepherd who becomes a king. And it was a journey that took place. It was a long process. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a couple weeks. It took a long time. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I think about us, and I think about our interactions with the world, and I think about our interaction with GPS, Facebook, and Amazon Prime, and how we're cutting out this journey. And I think about J.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. And in Middle-earth, if you don't know what it is, it's a place where there's different people, there's different lands, and there's adventures to be had, there's talking trees, and there's talking owls, and there's wizards, and there's magic, and it's a crazy, mysterious world full of orcs and different types of people. It's crazy. There's adventures left and right. But but they couldn't experience Middle-earth if they never left the comfort of their home. You can't experience Middle-earth if you go around all the adventures. You can't experience Middle-earth in a calm place. We can't experience the journey of our life in calm. We can't experience the journeys of life with our eyes shut. We have to experience them with eyes wide open. We can't expedite it. We can't get to the destination without learning. There's a process that we have to go through. There's an adventure. Today we're going to talk about how we're going to go on that journey. We pray. Father, you are just so good, and I don't have to explain that. I don't have to tell you that, Lord, because you show it. You show us how great you are. You've taken us on an adventure, Lord. Today I just want us to learn how to value that adventure. Value that adventure that you have set us on. Lord, we are excited for who you are and what you're doing. Lord, now just teach us. I pray that we more of you and less of me. I pray you move in a powerful way today. I pray it's on your son's name. Amen. So we find David. And I just want to get you up to speed with who David is. David was Israel's greatest king. He was the second king of Israel, and he was the absolute greatest. Everything would be modeled after David. Everybody would try to be like David. Everybody would look to David as the model for who Israel should be and what Israel should like and Israel's future. And they would always want people to be like David. David is awesome. But we can't forget that he started with a humble beginning as a shepherd, as a sheep herder, as somebody who was taking care of the flock. We always think of King David and how royal he was and how powerful he was and how strong he was and how much faith he had in God and how he messed up, yet God still kept taking him back because he had a true and pure heart. And he was a man after God's heart. But we forget where he began as a shepherd, as the lowest of his family, as the youngest in his family, as one forgotten about, one seen as not good enough. And so this road to royalty that David had to take was not perfect, it was not clear, it was not paved. It was a journey, an adventure. It's probably one of the most epic journeys that the Bible has to tell us. So let's go to that journey today. We find David began in 1 Samuel 16, if you want to turn with me. 1 Samuel 16, you find David. And just catch up with the story. Saul was the previous king of Israel, the very first king of Israel. He was a king that man wanted. And God revoked his favor from Saul. And so Saul went to Samuel, who was a prophet, and said, Samuel, we need to get a new king in here. We need the future king. And so I need you to go to Jesse. He has a bunch of sons, and you got to pick one of them. And I'm going to tell you which one to pick. So Samuel goes to Jesse, and then this is where we start the passage. So beginning in verse 6. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab, one of David's brothers, and thought, surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab, another one of David's brothers, and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Jesse then had Shammah pass by. But Samuel said, nor has the Lord chosen this one. Jesse had 7 sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, the Lord has not chosen these. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons you have? They're still the youngest, Jesse answered. He is tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent for him and had him brought in. And he was glowing with health and had fine appearance and handsome features. And then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and get this, pay attention to this, and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. From that day on, in the presence of his brothers, who rejected David and who were rejected by Samuel, David was anointed with oil to be the next king of Israel. He would be the future king. No longer would there be Saul. There would be David, ushering the throne. And if you will, 20 chapters later, 20 years later, we find David. 2 Samuel chapter 5. You'll join me. Verse 4. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 4 years. Anointed to be the king of Israel at the age of 10. Appointed to be the king of Israel at the age of 30. 20 years had passed. 20 long years between when David was first anointed to be the king and he was appointed to be the king. And in that 20 years, David learned how to serve a king. David learned what it meant to fight giants. David learned what it meant to be forsaken by his friends. David was forgot about. He was attempted to be murdered. He was attempted to be stoned by the men who he loved and he followed and he commanded. David had friends slander him. David trusted a king who he was supposed to take over for. David, for 20 long years, went on a journey, went on an adventure, took a process from being anointed and appointed. A 20-year journey. 20 years from when David was called to be the king until he actually became the king. 20 years from where he was to where God called him to be. 20 years is a long time. And in those 20 years, I think at some point, David stopped and said, what is going on here? This is madness. I was anointed to be the king of Israel, yet here I am in a cave hiding from my own men. Here I am supposed to face a giant who's surely to kill me. Here I am, Lord, fleeing for my life. Surely at some point David said, what's going on? This journey isn't making any sense. For 20 years, David had embarked on a journey that took him from where he was to where God intended him to be. And in every journey of life that we embark on, there's always a period from where we go, from where we are to where God wants us to be. From where we are to where God wants to be. And this is called a process. This is an adventure. And this could take a lifetime. It could take months. It could take years. It could take days. But it's an adventure. And in this 20-year period, David learned to trust in the Lord. David learned to become a man after God's own heart. In that 20 years, David learned what courage was. He learned how to face giants. In that 20 years, he learned how to protect himself and how to stay safe and how to be a king and how to lead people. In those 20 years, David learned what it meant to have true friends and true followers. In that 20-year process, God used David's experiences to forge in him the image of God. In that 20 years, God used David's experiences to forge in him truth, to forge in him courage, to forge in him a sense of justice and right and wrong, learned to forge in him forgiveness and the ability to lead a nation. A 20-year journey in every single chapter. David's life is either on the line or he's in such a terrible position that he has to hide or he has to carry the weight of Israel. 20 years, people. 20-year journey. And in our life, we are going to have to experience these journeys. We are going to have to go through marriages, and we are going to have to learn how to deal with another person in our life. We're going to have to learn to deal with kids. We're going to have to learn to deal with financial crisis. We're going to have to learn to deal with storms. And in those times, God is going to teach us. In our journeys, in our experiences, God is going to take us. He is going to forge His image in us. You know, I think about David in 1 Samuel 30. He's with his men. And he's with his comrades. And they just had a successful campaign. And they reach a hometown of Ziklag. And they get to Ziklag, and it is just rubble, utterly destroyed. Women and children, nowhere to be seen. Not killed, taken captive. And his men, the Bible says, they're in anguish. And they are hurting, and they are weeping so loud. And they consider stoning David. Their friend, their leader. And David, and the Bible says David is in such distress, such anguish, such pain. Not because of what happened, but because of his men's treason. That he has to retreat. And it's really cool right here. It says David learns to encourage himself in the Lord. He finds strength in the Lord. In this adventure, David found strength in the Lord and found the ability to encourage himself when nobody else was around. What is God teaching you in your season of life? What is God teaching you on your journey? Have you ever considered that? Have you ever thought about it? Maybe right now you're feeling like, man, nothing's going on. Where's God at? Nothing good's going on in my life. Nothing bad's going on. It's kind of neutral. It's kind of boring right now. Have you ever thought maybe God's trying to work on you and trying to forge His image in you? Maybe you're going through a storm right now and it's just horrible and you can't wait to get out. I can't blame you. Can't blame you for that. But have you considered that maybe God is also trying to teach you in this storm? Maybe He's trying to teach you how to endure the next storm. I mean, we have this contorted view in the American church that God can't work in the storms, that He can't work in our trials, that He can't work in our tribulations. But in the Bible, that's what we see. We see a God who works through the lepers, who works through the cheaters and the liars and the sinners and those who have not. We see a God who works through the lame and the paralyzed and the broken people of this world. That's the kind of God we see. We see the God who works through trials and tribulations. We see the God who defies odds. Yet why is it that when we're in our trials and when we're in our storms, that when we're most distant from Him? We see it very clearly. That's the kind of God that we worship. And David, in the middle of the storm, I can guarantee you, he wanted to get out of that. He was like, God, can't I just be king already? Can I just be king? I don't have to wait 20 years. You see, in that journey, in this process going from where he started to where God wanted him to be, God was teaching him how to be. He was teaching him the principles that he needed and the person that he needed to be. And maybe right now God is taking you, and you're a person in transit, and you're on a journey, you just don't know where God's taking you yet. And maybe God's teaching you something right now. And maybe you're just not ready for that something. Maybe it's something that you're really going to need to endure later on. But right now, I think God's trying to teach everybody something in this room. And I think we have to constantly ask ourselves, what is that? That's something God is trying to teach. What in my current stage of life, in my current season, what is God teaching me? Is He teaching me to get closer to Him? Is He forging His image in me to be a stronger person? Maybe it's to be a stronger husband or a stronger wife. Maybe it's to be a better family altogether. Maybe it's to appreciate my job and appreciate the boss that gives me such a hard time. Maybe it's just simply to love people in a better way. What is God teaching me? And where is He taking me? I mean, it's a journey. It's a journey for a reason. But could we imagine for a second, like so many of us do, can we just imagine if David cut that journey out of his life? If this 20-year gap wasn't there, if this 20-year period between his anointing and his appointing didn't exist, can we imagine what kind of king David would be? Imagine a David without a Goliath. Imagine a David without the threat of being killed. Imagine a David without having to endure the hardships that he had to endure. What if David just went straight to the throne right after? What if there was no rough path? What if there was no ups and downs like an adventure has? What if he just became a king as a kid, a 10-year-old king, a 10-year-old punk as a king? What would he be like? Would he be that role model that Israel has had for millennia? Would he be that king that people love and respect and try to emulate? Would he be that kind of person? Without the storms in your life, will you be that kind of person? Without the journey, would you be that kind of person? What is God trying to teach you in your journey? And why are we trying to cut it out? So often we're like this. We cut the journey. We just cut it out of our lives. We try to make things simple and easy. Instead of working on a friendship and we cut them out. We say, I don't need this person. They're causing too much trouble. We just cut them out. Forget it. And while that's okay sometimes, I think it happens way too quickly. Some of the divorces that people go through, man, I think if people just endured a little longer. I think about some of the financial hardships that people go through and some of the things they do to try to get out of them so quickly. Only to end up in further problems, in a cycle and vortex of problems that are never ending because they're trying to reach and attain quick fixes. We're cutting corners. We cut corners in our journey, cut corners in our lives, cut corners in all we do in all our journeys because we want to get to the destination without ever going on the journey. Don't expedite your life. Experience it. Because in this lifetime, in this journey, in the storms, in the trial, in the good, in the bad, in the climax, in the plot twist, in all the things of this adventure, God is trying to do a good work